Welcome back to the Brother Show. I'm your host, Kmo. Tonight we'll be talking about men's health. Men's health is so important to us. It's actually Men's Health Awareness Month. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And I have a special guest on tonight, and he's actually my brother from another mother. And I'm gonna let him introduce himself and talk a little bit about who he is, maybe where he lives and things of that nature. But we're going to be talking tonight about Men's Health Awareness Month. We both share a lot of similarities with our families, with just things that we all look at as Black men in America. But tonight we're going to have a conversation around Men's Health Awareness Month. Is so important, and we don't do a better job of having conversation about that amongst ourselves, let alone with each other. And so what we need to do to push each other so we can do better with our health. So I have him on. KC, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing, Kmo? Like you said, my brother from another mother. My name is Kerry Cotton. I am a environmental engineer at Evoca Water Technologies here in Sarasota, Bradenton, Florida. Corey and I have some enlightening conversations daily on men's health and other conversations, and I'm ready to jump right into it.
All right, great. So we'll talk a little bit about our relationship. So we actually are by blood brothers, and we do a lot of have a lot of conversations about health all the time. Mostly it's about relationships and mental health, but we also wanted to have a conversation around how we had this conversation with each other and how we can expand that conversation with other guys. And so our relationship is unique. I think we met each other when I knew you knew when I was as a kid, but we really kind of got introduced when I was in high school. I think you were at Florida State. I was still in high school. You took me out and we played basketball behind the old, it was Florida High, but now FSU. And I remember I was still trying to live in my hoop dreams. And either you were out of school, I think, or you were working at the time, but you showed me a good time. And also we've had some other great memories together, but that's the first time I really think that we hung out and spent a lot of time with each other. So what was your first time in remembering our relationship?
Actually it was when taking you to play basketball. Corey was a lot chubbier at the time. He was younger. Yeah. I guess I want to say he was 6th or 7th grade.
Okay. And I thought I was in middle school. I mean, high school. I thought I was in high school, 9th to 10th grade.
You were 6th or 7th grade, and maybe 8th. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't take you to play ball. We have the same dad.
Right.
For the fans that doesn't know, my dad. I wasn't raised in Tallahassee. And Corey and I got introduced later in life. Mm-hmm. And once I met him, I wanted to know who my brother was, and I wanted to know all about him as much as I could. So spending time with him while I was in college and trying to show him a little bit of how things were done on the college campuses, Corey and I, took a liking, and we became closer and closer throughout the years.
Yeah. So, and I think, the reason why we wanted to talk about this Men's Health Awareness Month is because we are connected through our father, and talk a little bit about our stories. And so I guess I can go first, definitely, to talk about my story and why this month is so important. So people know that I actually have a podcast. This is the Brother to Brother Show, but I also have a business around Tomorrow's Men that talks about having conversation with men about their mental health, having conversation with men about relationships. And so it's so important for me to kind of get that out there and to have these conversations with other men, because we can know that we have support outside of what we have to do as men every single day. And so my story is unique because I was brought up with my mother. My mother's company and her organization, her program that she ran for years, Tomorrow's Men, is actually the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. And that's the reason why it's called Tomorrow's Men, because she had a liking with young men to empower them to be better men within their communities. And so that's my story. But a lot of things, a lot of people do not know that same strong woman dealt with diabetes, and I actually talk a little bit about this in my upcoming podcast. Dealt with diabetes, and it really did a lot for my sister and I, because she was a single parent. She was the one, having the responsibility to kind of take care of my sister and I. I felt like we had to, when she got older and the disease started taking over her, over the years, then we saw a woman who was so strong and powerful amongst our eyes, almost deteriorate at a faster pace. And I remember myself, leaving, going off to, well, actually being in college and seeing my mom a certain way, and then graduating from college and seeing my mom a completely different person. And so it did a lot for me, but it also did a lot in uh, having me be more aware of my health, right? Because I was coming from a place that I had high risk in diabetes. I made it a big point to myself, especially being a broke college student, to get back out there. And I told myself, once I started working in the world, I was going to make sure that I was going to do a better job of taking care of myself. One of the things that I learned was the fact that her having diabetes, and again, I'm going to tell this story again. I learned that her having the disease, she should have been taking insulin sooner than she did, and she didn't. And that's the reason why the disease took over faster. And so because I was aware of that, and I would go to the doctor every not just the checkups, but also anything that happened with me with the medical, that I felt like was something that was hurting me. I would go to the doctor. And so one of my doctors said, you have anxiety about going to the doctor. And I said, well, what's wrong with that? In the Black community, so many different times you don't have the opportunity to even have insurance to go. Like, there was a choice to go, unless you fell off of a of a building or got in a car accident. You might not have had the opportunity to go because of finances. And so I knew once I got to a place where I was going to have some really reliable insurance, and I was going to go to the doctor. And so that's what I've been doing since then. I don't know if it's not the I was like, what's the harm in doing it, right? And going off and making sure that I was going to make sure that I was going to be aware of my body. I was going to be aware of what was going on with myself, so I can get ahead of those things. So that's my story when it comes to especially when it's in this particular topic, because I understand with men's health, we don't go to the doctor. We don't do a good job of we were told to suck it up and just keep pushing. But we've seen our fathers, we've seen other people in our as we've gotten older, not take care of themselves and see what's happened to them. And I think the awareness piece is most important. And even though I think it was I would say that that disease is a curse, I also believe it's so important for it's also a blessing for me to understand. Because of this, I'm going to take the information that I got and try to build on that as for the next generation. KC, what about you, man? What's your story?
My story is
Or do you
similar.
have a story?
My story is a lot similar to yours. Actually, instead of my mother, it was my brother. As far as men's health, my brother passed away at the age of 38, 12 years ago, from a massive stroke. Very young. I got a call in the middle of the night, from my mom, screaming and crying and saying, I'm 5 hours away, saying that my brother had a stroke. My brother had a stroke. Get down there, which is 5 hour drive, or fly as soon as you can. So I went down, and it was pretty much too late. He was brain dead, and my mom or stepdad couldn't make that decision to pull the plug, and I was the one to have to pull the plug, to say, because his brain was gone, and it was basically just air flowing through his body. And as far as mental health, that was a part of mental for me, because I live with that every day, knowing that I was the one that had to make that decision. So, but that was a hard decision for me, and I made sure that my brother, like I said, this was 12 years ago, and it was right before Obamacare. It was right before, so he didn't have the adequate insurance to get blood pressure pills, to get, go to the doctor, like Corey was saying earlier, or Kmo was saying earlier, sorry. Um, so a few years later, that's when Obamacare came about, and hopefully it wasn't able to save my brother, but hopefully it can save someone else's brother or father, uncle, sister, cousin, aunt, grandma. And a few years after that, I had another tragedy. My father had a massive stroke, and but he was on insurance and he was taking blood pressure pills at the time, and he still the stroke still hit him pretty hard, and it was me who had to pretty much maintain and take care of him during that time.
Yeah, man, I remember that time. I remember I got the phone call from my sister. I was in, DC in the north, and I wasn't able to come down immediately, but it was hard, man. Like it was hard for me to see. I remember going to his therapy session, and going to and seeing how he was, and I think that I think those things happen for reasons because again, they come from a different era in the sense of, they didn't go to the doctor like that. They didn't take care of themselves. They relied on, they were always strong. They were always moving. He was a physically fit guy for the most part. I
I
don't think
think he
he
weighed
partook. Huh?
163. I think he weighed 163.
Yeah, he didn't partake in like
Wasn't
drugs,
overweight.
alcohol, and things like that. He wasn't like that at all. But when we talk about like men's health, I'm thinking more so like going to the doctor on a regular basis. I mean, when anything happened, we were taught just to take medication, and I can just remember like um, some of those ailments and things. I think that I saw older people have is because they didn't take care of it when they were younger, and
Yeah.
a lot of times because blacks did not have um, the insurance,
Well,
you know.
you also also understand that a lot of blacks, older individuals, didn't trust doctors because of what
Mm,
happened in the years past. So,
yeah,
you got to take that in consideration now. Now, our generation and younger, they don't even know about the
right.
Tuskegee.
They don't.
They have
They
no
don't.
clue. So they're going to trust everything that the doctor says,
Right.
which, for the most part, probably is true.
Right. Right. So what KC is talking about is just we're just having our parents had stereotypes in their minds to not really trust and having trust issues within the medical field because of things that were done to us that
Yeah.
which I can understand really did make them feel, especially going out to even our generation.
Well,
But go
it
ahead.
has that mental part
Yeah,
now. The trust
absolutely.
mental, like, I'm not doing that.
And
It's experiments.
let's go into that, the mental piece of it. And I'm not talking just about, going to the doctor for your regular checkup, but
Mhm.
also going to for like, mental health and stress. One of my good dear friends from college, we were talking, having a conversation not too long ago, and he definitely said, um, when's the last time you went to therapy? you know and he was just like, it's when you're doing so many different things, when you have a job or you're in this world that especially people of color have had so much stress that we've allowed to just be okay with, right? And as you get older and
We've
older,
adjusted.
say again, we've
We've
adjusted
adjusted.
to it.
Yeah.
The thing with that is, with all the time we continue to live, but it still deteriorates our body, and we don't know it mentally until it starts hitting our body. And
Mhm.
so it hits your body first, but then it starts messing with your mental. And so that's when your mental stress starts coming out, And so I feel like a lot of times mentally we can try to we can overcome it, but because after so long, it starts hurting our bodies. And so if we don't have an opportunity to even sit down with someone to have conversation. And so I'm a big advocate of therapy, but also I'm also an advocate of mentorship as well. I'm also an advocate of, other men having conversation. And I remember when the shift happened, maybe like 10 years ago to Casey, when people were not even talking. We grew up with mentors. We grew up having these mentorship programs and things of that nature. Do you think that the mentorship and the counseling is important for the younger kids? And do you see that a correlation between the two?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely feel as though the mentorship, what it was counseling, because they would my mentors, I know for sure, they would
Mhm.
tell you exactly what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. They would
Right,
tell me exactly what I needed to hear and get on me,
right,
if it was something that I wasn't doing correctly.
right,
They would definitely put us in check. And at that time, parents, pushed it and said,
right,
"Yeah,
right.
you're going to
It takes
listen
a
to
village. It takes a
Mr.
village to
So and
raise a
so.
child.
Mr.
Yep.
So and so's told you, or
Mhm.
Coach so and so. It was a coach or
Yep.
a mentor in some form. I grew
Mhm.
up in the boys.
Counselor. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
So with that said, like I think it's so important for people to kind of understand where that history and how it's kind of like slowed down, because if we don't do it, we don't push for mentorship for 5 years, it's lost. The next generation doesn't know anything about it. And so that's where that accountability comes in, and not accountability to try to hurt anybody, but also accountability to say, you know, I'm here for you. I'm going through the same things. I actually have a mentor of mine, a former coach of mine. Uh, I know he was going through a tough time. Really, really cool guy. Pushed me a lot. I hated him for it. Hated him for it for like a year, right? Once he left, I realized how much of an asset he brought to me in my life. Bro, that was like 20 years ago, right? And
mhm.
so I talked to him right, but I was trying to reach out to people right before during the pandemic, maybe like I was probably like 18, 17, 18. And I remember reaching out to him, and I found him on like LinkedIn. And we had a long conversation, bro. Like we talked about his kids now. He was a whole different person, with as a family man and things of that nature. But he was so hurt. And so to see him hurt and to be able to like have a conversation with him about letting him know now that I'm here for him, letting him know now, hey, you did something to me at that time, and understand that how impactful that was for me. And just because you're going through it, understand that we're here for each other. And I don't think enough men do that for each other, because again, we had a relationship in a sports world, and when I was a kid, but it's funny how things kind of shape themselves and come back around, so you can like give that support for somebody else. Do you have a story like that, or anybody, like especially
Absolutely.
men that
And it's funny
you talk
because
to?
the story is similar to that.
Okay.
My main mentor, I'm gonna give his name out, Louis Morrell, in the Boys and Girls Club of Manatee County. He was my mentor, and like you said, everything comes full circle. And he followed me through college. I think we lost contact once I became a young adult and working and everything. But a few years back, we connected again, and we were just talking. And he went through an ugly divorce, and he was just down. And I just told him how much I appreciated everything he did for me, how much he kept his foot on my neck when I needed
Right.
it. He
Right.
was, he was the director of the boys club. He was
Mhm.
also a coach for youth little league football, but I never played for him. But he
Right.
did so much in the community. I nominated him, and he won. I
Mm.
nominated him for one of the community awards, and he won. And he was just so, and I actually was the one to present the award to him, and
Mm.
he was so proud and happy and just cheerful throughout the evening that night.
So with that said, like we talk about like just health in itself. What are some of the things that you pay because of those things with our parents, because of those things that you talked about mental health with? I know that was a scenario, but think about, what do you do now to try to make sure that your health is intact? I gave a brief scenario, what I do when it comes to because of my mother, right? I know we're talking about men tonight, but even in that form, and growing up in that household, and seeing those things, seeing the high blood pressure, right? Seeing these things, and these things are hereditary as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
how do you prevent? What are some things you're trying to do to prevent those things from happening?
Well,
Um,
one,
I know you said I know you do. We talk about working out and stuff like that, but for me, I try to work out every day. Every day. I try to do something that's active every day, even if sometimes you have to listen to my body, right? But also in my physically, is the working out physically and like eating emotionally. There are some times when I go ham every now and then, but for the most part, I try to make sure that I'm eating something that has protein, has vegetables, has the nutrients that I need to make sure that, you know, I can continue on and I continue to have a certain mindset. Taking supplements occasionally, drinking enough water, right? People don't do that either. Drinking enough water and not a whole bunch of sodas and things like that. I'm not saying that to do it, but just trying to have like balance. And then mentally, having conversation with some sharp guys, right? Having some conversation with men who are like-minded, having conversation who are about family, who are about making money, spiritually, things like that. You know, like so many different things. What are some of the things that you do to try to holistically, from a health standpoint, keep you going?
Well, first of all, I think the main thing is listen to your body. You know, not be afraid to make that appointment to the doctor. You and I are getting upper in age now, and you know, I used to be just like, I guess, I'll be all right. It's okay. It's just heartburn or something like that. But now to the point where I'm just like, nah, I'm gonna go get it checked out. I'm gonna go. I have no problem with going to the physician and making an appointment and going to see exactly what's wrong. Um, I had a scare a little while ago, matter of fact, where I had a knee issue and I had no idea where it came from, zero idea where it came from. And it was just bothering me. And my wife was saying that we should get it checked out. I said, yeah, I agree. And I had a blood clot in my ankle.
Yeah.
And my grandmother passed from a blood clot. And he said it was moving. The doctor, the physician said it was moving up. And I came just in time and solved it. And, you know, things that now have to go every so often to make sure, you know, I'm not getting any more. But that's, you know, one of the things to pay attention to your body and pay attention.
So you almost didn't pay attention to your body though. What was, you know, do you feel like having the, and I'm gonna say your wife there, but also having an accountability person there to kind of push you? Because sometimes as men, like we said, we grew up with, man, it'll be all right. You know,
I did that for a day or two, but you know, it got to the point. It wasn't the same pain you had.
Right.
You know, I played ball. So I know some of these injuries are due to that. It wasn't that kind of pain. And it came out of nowhere. So I was like, yeah, you're right. And once I went, I couldn't even leave the doctor's office. Like, no, you need to go to the emergency room right now. Because it was that bad.
Right.
So and as far as mental, like you said, communicating with like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
Communicating with brothers that think like you and
Yeah.
look like you, and just eat, like you said, it doesn't have to be about health. It can be about money. It can be about life. It can be about sport. It can. That also helps. It's a relief for us.
Yeah.
And you and I speak, I don't know how many times a day, but that is helpful.
But you also know, if you would have said something about that blood clot, I'm like, man, you need to go to the doctor. You tripping.
I didn't know it was a blood clot. That's the thing. I didn't know it was a blood clot.
Right, but I'm just saying, you know, I would have said the same thing that, you know, your wife would have said. I'm like, if it's hurting that bad, man, I wouldn't play with nothing like that. And a lot of times people will kind of like leave it alone, you know?
Yeah. At the time, she wasn't my wife.
Okay.
I don't think I don't even think we were engaged. I think we were dating. I think. I may have my dates wrong, but for the most part, I don't think she was my wife at the time. But you know, she still pushed and was like, "Hey, we need to go get this checked." And I did the very next day, and then that's when it's like, "No, you need to go." And so they did.
You get a check in, or you went to the emergency room?
No, I went to a specialist the very next day.
Okay.
I mean, they got me in right then.
Yeah.
My physician knew that it was something more serious. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's just so important for Black men and like in health. Like, we don't do enough to actually have conversation about it. I know we have a group. I know people have group chats and things of that nature, but one of the things that we try to do is with organization I'm a part of is we have conversation about mental health. Like one of the first things that we do when we have our conversation is we talk about how are you feeling? What are you doing right now to make sure that mentally you're okay? And it's about 10 to 15 people on this call, and guys, all men, and they're having these conversations. And again, we're holding each other accountable, we're encouraging each other, we're building each other up. And but it's all positive energy. And sometimes you get some guys who would say, I was messed up. One of my guys, he was like, I'm messed up in here right now. Or I wasn't doing right and I apologize. And he broke down. But we also make it a safe space, KC. Make it a safe space for guys to have these conversations so that they can be able to be vulnerable, so that they can heal. And a lot of times, I don't think we grew up with enough safe spaces. I know that we have safe spaces, but we don't have enough safe spaces where people can kind of like really turn on how they feel and then have those conversations with others. And then sometimes you just need an ear. And then you're able to look at that human being and say, hey, I got you. Let me check up on Brandon like this. Let me check on KC. Let me check on Corey. Let me check on Jarvis or whoever it might be, because you don't know. Because what we're all raised to do is what? Just wear the mask. And so because we're wearing a mask so many times, like sometimes you're fooling yourself. You're fooling yourself that you got it. And like that pain that you may be feeling, either it's from your inside or you're out, in your body, it's going to eventually catch up with you, bro. And I think that's one of the things that we connect with, because I think that's what happened with Coach. So what you got to say?
No, I agree with you completely with that. Like you said, it's good to have that space amongst your brothers. Yeah, the one that you can communicate with. A lot of us didn't have that. I mean, you just think, modern technology now, you guys are all on a Zoom, or we're on a Zoom now. And, we can sit here and speak about mental health.
Right.
It can reach thousands and thousands of people. It can reach someone, maybe even my godson, who actually needs it.
Right.
So this platform and other platforms are definitely something that is definitely needed amongst our community.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I want to continue these conversations. I know we're going to continue our conversation. That's why, again, you see the podcast in the back. It talks about Brother to Brother Show. And I wanted to start back, especially ending this year with Men's Health Awareness Month, so that we can continue to have these conversations on this platform or other platforms. I know a lot of guys talk about a lot of different things, relationships and things of that nature, but we don't just talk about relationships. We also talk about men's needs and what they need, so we can continue to be better men in our communities and our families, so we can uplift each other. So you want to say anything to our listeners before we head out?
Yeah, I do want to say one thing. You say you want to, men's health. I think that will help. If a man has good mental health, that would help in their personal relationship as well. So I just wanted to make sure, the brothers out there understand that part. You can't be with someone if you're not right yourself.
Right.
It's easy just to, hit the brother show up, and you can have one-on-one conversations with them at any time. I call them probably 15 times a day. So he's my my counselor. I'm the big brother, but he's my counselor as well.
Yeah, man. So let's continue to have these conversations. Again, those that don't know, I am a life coach. We do have these conversations, and it's again, what better way to have a conversation and have better relationships without those women too who want to have a conversation with men to kind of understand men.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, we don't have enough of these conversations so women can understand who we are. And so, with that said, I wanted to just shout out all the men out there for this month. Continue to go and get your checkups, continue to get your mental health together. If you're trying to even have accountability partners, we'll try to find ways for you to go out and seek the information, seek the help that you need, so that you can empower yourselves to be better men. And again, we can only do this with each other and have an accountability partner to grow. So KC, thanks so much, man, for being on. We'll talk soon, and we'll see you next time at the Brother to Brother Show. For those listeners, thanks so much for listening, and please continue to support as we continue to move on to be better men in this life that we live. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for coming onto the show. You can find us at tomorrowsmen.com, on Facebook at Tomorrow's Men, and on Instagram at Tomorrow's Men. Please click and subscribe to the button below. I'm your host, Kmo. Until we meet again, know we love you, work with us, be with us, and know we're coming from the heart. Peace.